Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and Happy New Year. I can't believe it. It's January 5th already. I hope you all had an amazing holiday break with your family and loved ones, got the most deserved and much needed rest, and now you're ready to rock 2024. I'm Shirin Ali Penna with Village Corps. I'm one of the board members and also lead the marketing efforts. I'm joined here with Shah, who is the brain and engine behind everything that we do. So he leads all of our technology efforts. And our special guest today is David Yankaskas, who is the founder and president of Yankaskas Financial Insurance Services. So welcome, David. Thank you for being with us today. We are so happy to have you. And I want to give you the floor for a minute or two to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about the background, your background, and then we'll dive into the topic that we're going to cover today.
Sure. And try to say Yankaskas Financial Insurance Services 3 times. Just a little bit background. I'm very grateful to be featured here today. Thank you very much. A little bit of my background. I've been in this industry a little over 5 years. I've sort of reinvented myself. Before that, I was an engineer in the electrical industry. But this was a calling to me, and I'm able to help a lot of different people from a financial and insurance standpoint. It's a subject that doesn't get discussed often enough, and the more educated people are with it, the better. They can make better decisions for them. So it's a little bit about that.
Yeah. Thank you, David. And David is one of the active members of North County Business Chamber here in San Diego County. He contributes a lot to the education, to the promotion, and to the outreach of this great organization. That's where we actually met and we connected. So a huge shout out to North County Business Chamber for that, for bringing these like-minded people, the community together. And this is where we kind of see the value of that, right? We come together and we create a bigger community, and we have a bigger network that we can utilize each other's knowledge and information, and also give back to the community. So with that, we're going to dive right into our topic for today, which is top of mind for a lot of folks within our community, and that is estate planning. And I know, as well as most of you, this is a very complicated topic, and there are a lot of information you can Google and find online, and there are a lot of misinformation is also available online, and there are a lot of things that we learn as we go through the process. There are some mistakes we make as we go through the process, but the idea here today is to talk about some of those common mistakes and how to avoid them. And our expert, David, here is going to cover those mistakes. And the hope is that you listen, you take some value back, and not make those mistakes while you're going through your estate planning process. So, David, floor is all yours.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so there is an article that I read here some time ago called the How to Guide for the Top 5 Mistakes in Estate Planning. And so we'll briefly go over them. And we could spend hours and hours on this subject, but it is something that people are, number one, they don't really quite know what the difference between a will and a trust is. But once you do have one or both of those, then there's some things to maintain on a regular basis that will help you put things in a line so that should something catastrophic happen in the family, and these resources need to be accessed, that there's specific instructions set up in there so that people know exactly what to do, and they're not trying to find passwords and those types of things for accounts, which is very, very important. So just a little statistic, over 60% of parents in this country have not completed estate plans, which means that their children and assets are at risk in an emergency. Now, we all know that it's not going to happen to me, but we do read about it every day in the paper of something happening to some family or organization or something along those lines. And what we're trying to do here with a will and a trust is put things in place so that it doesn't go through probate, as well as it doesn't cost a significant amount of money in order to process it through, and things get held up for a long time. So the first thing is not having a will. And what some parents don't know is that if you don't have a will in place, it's the only legal place where you can actually name your guardians. So if you do not do that and you have children, the state takes over. And a lot of times the state is not going to make the correct decisions on how you want your children to be, to have the proper family members taking care of them and those types of things. So that's the first thing. That's one of the big things, is not having a will. There's things within the will that you should always do. Is a lot of times, even if you have a will, naming only one guardian. What would happen if that guardian was in the vehicle if you were in a car accident or something like that? So then you need to have probably 2 to 3 different backups within your will of who those guardians would be, that you designate for your children if that happens. Now, I know that we have a wide variety of audience, and some people are senior and on the senior side of things, such as myself, but you also have children, and if they haven't done something like this is something to convey over to them and educate them on. In my own case, I require my clients to have up to at least 3 named guardians. It's just in case. The other thing is failing to exclude a family member who a parent does not wish to have as a guardian. And you can be very specific about that. So in today's world, there's many blended families, and there may not be some synergy between certain members. And so should something happen there, you want to have make sure that that's excluded, so that doesn't get into a big fight among the family. And then the other thing is naming married couples as guardians without designating what would happen in the event of a divorce, which we all know that can happen. So, or the death of one partner or the other. So you could have the family member pass away, and the in-law would have guardianship over the children. So these are some of the things that you need to think about when you put together your will, and this is what we help guide you through along those things. If there is no will, then on average, the probate time is anywhere from 12 to 24 months to go through the court process. So that's a huge, huge deal. And the court costs roughly are going to be 5% of whatever your estate is. So as an example, if you had a $500,000 term life insurance policy, 25,000 of that would go to just the courts just to get this settled, and it's going to be a long period of time. So that's one area that we want to make sure we take care of. So number one, how do you fix it? Get a will. I mean, and I mean, like, go out this afternoon and get one if you don't have one. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Myself, I can help you along those lines. I have access to some very good programs in order to do wills and trusts, but that's off on the side. There's currently, because there are no wills in place in a lot of cases, there's an organization called the Department of Unclaimed Funds, and there's actually billions of dollars within that fund of unclaimed accounts because they didn't have some instructions on where that money can go. Okay, number 2 is not having a trust. So as an example, in most states across the country, minor children are not allowed to legally inherit any money or property outright. So if they're underage, then it goes into probate, and they have to designate where this money is supposed to go. If you have a trust, you can set it up so that the money is taken care of by the trustee of the trust, and then there's funds for the children to be dispersed as needed going down the line. So there's a very big thing on having a trust when you have children. and want to make sure that they have the money they need to buy clothes and go to school and all the different things, that food and everything that needs to to happen. How can you fix it? One way is you protect your money for the next generation, shelter your assets. It also shelters your assets from creditors, divorce, future blended families, or surviving spouse. And there's a different kinds of trust out there. There's the main one is probably a wide range of revocable trust, which basically means you can change it along the way. Or there's a testamentary trust, which doesn't become funded until your death. But those are two different types that are out there. Most common is going to be a revocable trust, so that as life moves on and things change within families, you can go in and make minor changes with minimal amount of cost. Number 3 is naming minor children as a backup beneficiary on life insurance policies. And this is a huge one here that I see quite often, because they cannot inherit money directly. So carriers, insurance carriers, banks, brokerage houses will not distribute funds to minors. So that's where the court gets involved again, and that's where the trust comes in handy. So parents who must take action to make sure that there are funds available for any guardians who take on the responsibility of raising their children. So this is something very specific that you want to write into the dialogue within the trust itself of what should happen in case of. And then the proper way to do the name of backup on a life insurance or beneficiary driven account is to name your spouse, as you normally would, as the primary beneficiary, and then name the trustee on behalf of the trust. So this keeps it out of court. The biggest thing with the trust, not necessarily a will, but definitely from a trust, is it kind of look at it like you're building a wall around your estate. And you're only going to let in who you want to let in by your instructions. And this way it keeps it out of court system. And we don't want it to go there, because it's usually a long process and very expensive. And what you worked all your life to accumulate from an asset standpoint, you don't want to be paying it out because you didn't have it prepared. That's really the main reason. So the other part of it is number 4 is only naming permanent guardians in the will and not preparing for emergencies. And as an example, it's date night and you're going out to dinner, and you've told if there's any emergency to the babysitter, just give me a call. But what you don't consider is what something happened to you on the way to your date night, and what happens from there. So that needs to be built into this contingency here in the will and the trust of what should happen in case there's an emergency. Who should I contact in case something happens to me? So there's a plan in place for that, and that actually doesn't get covered quite a bit. And of course, we all were going out for a party or with a friend's house, or going out to dinner or a movie or whatever. We never think anything's going to happen to us. This is just an insurance thing, particularly when you have young children. It's a big thing. And then the best way to fix that is choose temporary guardians for your children up front, and let them know who they are, and then let the babysitter or the person, if you're traveling, somebody that's a house sitter or whatever, taking care of your children while you're gone, that they know who to call and where to go to in case something happens along the way. And then the 5th one and final is not having all your assets documented and tracked with instructions to access. And this is probably one of the biggest ones. When we put together a trust, you normally pretty quickly, if you own a home, move that into the trust and change the title so that it goes into the trust. But what a lot of people forget is that you have several bank accounts, credit unions, you may have credit cards, you have all these different things. So you need to list out an active list and maintain it on a regular basis of what your assets are, what your passwords are in order to access those accounts, how to pay the mortgage, how to pay these credit cards so that it doesn't get snowballed into penalties and those types of things. So that's a very quick overview of what you should do, but this is one I see a lot, and I was just as guilty as the next one until I finally woke up and started doing this. And that is really tracking your assets, making sure that somebody knows where your passwords are, and somebody knows what those accounts are in case something happens or you become incapacitated. So those are the 5 that I would talk about today, and that are big ones that I would address if I was working with somebody to do a trust and or a will. So
Wow.
that pretty much covers it.
That was great, David. Actually, as you were going through this, I'm just like checking these boxes in my head because I have state trust and estate plan, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't do this. Now it makes me think is like, yes, I have these designation for family members like that, as if something happens to me. But what you mentioned, like you go out and something happens, like what happens at that moment that your family is in care of somebody else? And I'm like, I don't have anything for that, actually. I never thought about that.
Yeah. So that's what the purpose of these things are, is to educate people so that they understand that, and it really will save them not only heartache if something ever did happen, because that's a very devastating thing to go through. But then on top of that, to have all this stuff pile on top because things were not in position that they need to be in order to easily access accounts and those types of things. So
yeah, and that's another, I think that was another kind of light bulb in my head too. Like I know I have listed like whatever I thought that I have, but maintaining that list because that keeps changing, right? I mean, we have new credit cards, or we open new accounts, or buy something, jewelry, like whatever it may be, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So
and then so my question here is, since we are listing all the assets here, would you list your credit cards?
I would keep it on a separate document. Yes, I would.
Okay.
And passwords on it, because almost everything is taken care of electronically now.
True.
Or whatever. But yeah, if you think about it, if you got a $2,000 bill in your credit card and it doesn't get paid for several months because they're trying to figure out you got incapacitated in some fashion in an accident, they're still going to want their minimum payment. So those kind of things like that. So yes, but obviously you want to keep it in a safe place that's not easily accessible, or only a few people know how to get to it, in that kind of thing.
Okay.
Or whatever, if you have something like that at home.
Yeah. Do not include all your passwords in your estate plan.
Yes, no, I wouldn't do that. But actually, when I did my own estate plan, it's one of those documents that I'll get to it later, and it's very easy to kind of push off to the side. And so it's very important for you to do that so that your spouse knows. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times you've got a couple, and it's been either the woman of the house is taking care of the accounts, and the husband's out working or whatever he's going to do, or vice versa. And they don't know that they have a checking account here or whatever. So you just don't want that to happen, and you don't want it to go to that department where things are unclaimed.
Yeah.
So anyway.
That is true. And then so from your experience, is that so? I'm trying to help like myself and everybody who's going to watch this understand, what is the best way to keep these lists of assets maintained? Do you create, like, let's say, I don't know, Google Sheet and give access to somebody, or
there
like
is in this article that I went through, there is a let's see if I can find it real quick. There is some software that you can buy or get access to, called Guardian Guide. So that's one area. The other one is to build yourself an Excel spreadsheet, and either and you could be in Google Drive or wherever. You can make a hard copy of it and put it in in the safe or someplace where it's in a locked file cabinet, something along those lines, that only someone that would know exactly where to look for it, they could come and get it.
Got it. Okay. Very helpful. Shah, anything from your end? Questions? Do you have your estate plan figured out already?
On the next payroll.
No, I don't have any questions, and I'm gonna work on that definitely.
Yeah, it's important. It's important. Believe me, it took me a long time before I finally bit the bullet and did it. But I've been very happy to do that. And then, you know, I always look at it. I have my niece is my trustee to handle my estate. But of course, my wife, she knows where everything's at, in case one or the other of us something happens. But a lot of times we could be together, and then what?
Right.
So there's just got to have those contingency plans in place. So
Absolutely.
you don't want to be a burden on anybody.
Oh, I know. Yes. Because you know what? We always think that things will not happen to me, just like you said. But you know, accidents happen, and
You sure do.
yeah. So so David, you are obviously your company, and you provide these services, right? To develop the will, the estate plan, the trust, and everything. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
The best way would be either by my email, which is going to be Dr. Yankaskas. So that's DrYankaskas @outlook.com. And also my cell number is 858-705-8291. So they'd be more than happy to give me a call and I could work with them. Now I'm just beginning to do presentations on these, and I'm doing my first one at the end of February in a much more extensive hour-long PowerPoint. And it most likely will be here in Rancho Bernardo area, probably Oasis is where I'm gearing for, but I don't have that firmed up yet. But I'm giving my first one there, and I'm doing some also some handouts at some senior citizen facilities, just kind of talking a little bit about this in a little more in-depth manner. So, but it's always good to talk about it. It's something important.
Absolutely. And then we can definitely coordinate, and then we can maybe for the benefit of our community, right? We can get the words out to have people attend that presentation. I don't know if there's live streaming or not, but we can help.
It's actually, I don't know. Actually, it's going to be live though, but there'll be there should be enough.
Awesome. That's great. That's great. We'll definitely get that information provided on our website and our social media for anybody who wants to attend.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much, David, for your time. Really appreciate it. Great information. I'm already taking notes mentally and physically here.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for getting me in here. I know it was short notice, but it was much appreciated.
Yeah. Thank you for jumping on the short notice. Again, so this was another educational information session. It was very valuable to me. I hope you all found it very valuable too. Again, as usual, this is my normal spiel. If you're a service provider and you're providing service to the senior community, please reach out to me. We would love to create a hub, a portal for all of our community to come to if they are looking for any education, any resources, any bit of information. So we want to be that place, one-stop shop where everybody can come and get information that are required or they need, or to get connected to the service provider that they are looking for. If you are part of the senior community and you want to get involved, there are so many ways for you to get involved. Please reach out to us. We can have you volunteer in some of the sessions that we are providing. If you are providing any sort of services, or you're retired and you would like to continue that on a part-time basis and give back to this community, we would love to have you featured in these sessions and have you showcase your talents and continue providing value to the community that you live in. With that, again, I'm Shivnali Panna on behalf of Village Core. I thank you for your time, and I will see you next Friday.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.